What's up, people? I'm Fonz, and today I've brought some more real Kakuro puzzles for us to solve at a viewer's request. They requested that I do numbers 255 and 257 of the challenging difficulty, and as you can see from my times, these were definitely not the quickest for me to solve even my first time around. They're definitely some pretty tricky puzzles. Music today in this video is brought by Jimmy, so take a moment and check out his stuff. Check out his SoundCloud and consider donating to him on Patreon. And just check out his music. He's got some really good stuff. So let's go ahead and get into this. Number 255 is the one I'll be doing in this video, and I'll do another video for 257. So first off, I kind of always tend to miss this in a lot of the videos that I do, but I really do like to take a moment, like when I first look at a puzzle, and just try to appreciate the shape of it. A lot of puzzles really just have some interesting shapes, especially in this app. They got some very kind of cool looking ones. And it's always something nice to appreciate with the symmetry of the way that everything is laid out. In this case, this is kind of not a standard looking puzzle. It looks kind of like a ninja star, but like a very inefficient ninja star where like two sides are way too long compared to the other two. But I guess looking at it in a little more detail, we kind of have like a 3x2 section up here, and of course it's symmetrical on the bottom. Down here we kind of have this almost like a 5x3 section when you really look at like the whole thing, but it's also kind of split up into these smaller like 2x3s with that overlapping square. Then yeah, little 2x2 box right there. So it's not too terribly shaped of a puzzle, at least. Although definitely when you get like these types of large areas, you can risk having to do some like maths to figure stuff out. But we'll just kind of dive in and see where we can get with this. Of course, start off with the easy stuff. Start off with the gimmies. So I'm going to start here. Take a look at that 4 and this 17. This from that has to be. So something actually interesting about the square. If we take a look at this column, so this column is 39 over 6 squares. And thinking about the numbers that can be, and maybe even it might be easier to think about the inverse, the numbers that cannot be. So we have essentially like, you could look at it as like 3 squares that all add up to 6, because 45 minus 39 is 6. And we don't have 9 squares, we only have 6. Or yeah, 6, so we're missing 3. So 3 that add up to 6 is 1, 2, 3. We can say that 1, 2, 3 can't go in this column. And of course you could also just do that looking at it kind of the standard way, just add up like 9 and 8 and 7, 6, 5, 4. And that will all give you 39, which would piece all into each of those 6 squares. But anyway, so this square has to be a 4 or higher. Now looking at this 13 right here, if we were to make this an 8 and a 1, which are the lowest 2 numbers of this, that's the lowest combination, that's a 9. That means that the highest the square can possibly be is a 4. So we know that that square has to be a 4 from that. And likewise, we have the 1 and the 8 there, which gives us a 9 and a 3 there. And that's pretty handy to start things off with. That gives us the 8 and the 9 right there. And I don't know if it's going to be critically important to do, but we can just do the maths right here to say that this 31 minus this 8, 3, and 9 is 20. So that's going to give us 11. So this has to be a 5, a 6, or a 7, which makes this a 4, 5, or 6. Yes, that math checks out. All right. Moving on, I guess I'll continue going kind of counterclockwise here. Or clockwise, not counterclockwise. So this one has to be a 6. It's the only one that's below an 8. So we have our 6 and 2 right there. So this is going to be 8, 9 with a 5 or a 6. So looking at this 11 column, 11 with 4 has to be a 1, 2, 3, and a 5. So that one cannot have a 6 in it, so that's got to be a 5 and a 9, which is going to make this one an 8 and a 3, which will only leave a 1 for that. And that's actually going to give the 3, the 1, and the 9 right there. So that's pretty handy, and it'll give us this 2, and this 1, and this 2, and this 1. Piece in that 17 real quick, the 16. Kind of nice, easy numbers to work with. Oh, you know what? Actually, the 16. We already have that 9 right there, so this has to be that. We can kind of move up here. So 11, of course, we already have that combination for 11 right there. So we know what like numbers have to go in this column. So 13, the only number that can go with the 13 is going to be the 5. Likewise for the 12, at this point can only be the 3. And then we can actually piece in this. So the 3 with the 3 for the 12 is going to give us a 9. The 5 for the 13 leaves us with the 8, and of course 24 has to be a 7 and a 1. And then that gives us a 2 down here. So that leaves a 6 between these two squares, which has to be a 1 and a 5. Because it would have to be a 1 and a 5 or a 2 and a 4. And we can't have the 2 and the 4 since we already have a 2 right there. So it's got to be a 1 and a 5. We already know a 1 cannot go in this column. So that's got to be a 5. This has got to be a 1. And we can take out the 5 and the 6 right here. So for this one, we have 13 over 2. Which this column can only have a 6, 7, and an 8. So that's going to be a 5, 6, 7. And we can't have a 7 in this column, which means we can't have a 6 there. This one right here, we may as well just take a look at. So 12 over 2 with the 8 and the 9 is going to leave us a 3 and a 4. And then this last square. So this last square, I ran through both of these puzzles kind of real quick. I think it was yesterday. And this was like, I guess, kind of the final piece of the puzzle. So figuring out essentially that this square is not a 6 is what it comes down to, is going to solve the rest of this puzzle. Taking a look at the square, we have a 3, 4, 5, and a 6 is what can go in this column right here. That's what's missing. So now taking a look at this row, and of course, looking at before we take a look at that, actually taking a look all the way around the rest of the puzzle, everything else is pretty well condensed. It's all down to like either this number or that number, and then that determines this one, which determines that one, and this one, and so on and so forth. But this row right here is the one that's not condensed. That's where we're going to get the most of our progress at this point, and really the only progress we're going to get left. So taking a look at this, we have 23 minus the 2 and the 1 gives us a 20 over 3 squares. These two squares have pretty high numbers in them, and kind of figuring out the range of what this square can be, like between what and what realistically will fit, is kind of what's going to give us the answer here. So these two squares, the lowest they can be is a 6 and an 8. And that means that the highest this square can be is a 6, which of course, since we're already using a 6 in this row, means that realistically, the highest this square can be is a 5. So we know this square has to be a 5 or less, so we can effectively get rid of that 6 at this point. Likewise, if you wanted to do guessing and checking, you could also just piece in a 6 and see if you could figure out how to get a 23 with the rest of these squares, it's never going to work. So that has to be less than a 6. And that means that this is the only place left for a 6 to go. And that's what's going to actually solve this puzzle for us. So that's 6. It goes with the 7 for the 13. That's going to make this one a 6 right there, with the 5 for 11. That only leaves an 8 down here, which is actually going to give us the 9 right there, and then the 8 goes with the 4, and then that only leaves us with the 3. And that's going to solve this puzzle. Just to show that the math works out, everything is good. I'm not actually going to finish the puzzle. I really hate like messing with my times, because it lets me see like what puzzles were kind of tricky for me the first time around if I ever want to go back and take a look at them. And it kind of just helps me keep score just for myself to see like how I'm getting better over time. So I really don't like doing that. So I'm not going to finish this puzzle, but you can see that was the solution. This one, of course, being a 1. And yeah, that was definitely a tricky puzzle. It definitely had a few things that you had to like, I guess, be observant about, especially in regards to like getting this first piece of information. Really, that 4 was such a huge piece of information with this puzzle, but just because it gave us this first bit of information that connected to the 8 and the 9, which gave us the 7, 9, 2, which was a very strong foundation just to start with. And then, of course, being able to narrow these down quickly to get us the 1, the 3, the 2, 1, 2, 1. Very nice for going for that bottom section. And then this helping us piece in the rest of that row. Definitely a tricky little puzzle. And it's something that I've noticed about this app that's kind of nice. I kind of didn't feel this way for the first like 100 puzzles or so, maybe even 200 puzzles for each difficulty, but it does seem like they get more difficult as you go along. I've definitely noticed a lot more recently that have been stumping me than did before. Although I guess it could also just be RNG with you know, maybe a few unlucky ones in a row or in a cluster, but it seems to me like they're getting progressively more difficult. So yeah, this was an interesting little puzzle. Interesting to go through it and solve it again and see what it was all about. But yeah, that's challenging 255. Hopefully this was helpful. And I guess I'll end it there. Take care.